We awake? We feeling good? You happy to be in the house of the Lord this morning? Come over here. Let's go. Come on. I need you people to get excited. We're happy to be here this morning with you. Excited to worship. I know we got a great day lined up. The most important thing about today, obviously, is getting in a place as we're back in school and we're getting back in a routine with the kids and all that stuff. But this morning, just to sell out, just to have the mindset of I'm here to worship. I'm here to get the word. All these distractions that have been going on, all this crazy whirlwind of a life that we all live, just to take this moment this morning to focus on what God has for us. So we're so excited to have you today. Now, reminder, if you are a visitor or you've been here a few times but you never filled out a card, don't forget when the offering is coming up to do that, because we want to talk to you and we want to get to know you a little better. So please remember to do that. I'm sure Matt will remind you as well. Also, big thing tonight, please be here. 6 o'clock, we got another baptism service. We got 6 people? At least 6 people, so that's pretty incredible. 6 people get baptized. Taking that next step is absolutely huge. So rise with me, let's pray and get ready to worship. Father, we love you. We thank you for this day, the many blessings that you have given us. Father, we thank you for the sacrifice that you made for us, because you don't need us, God, what you want us. You love us that much that you want to spend forever with us. But Father God, as we come together this morning, let us feed off of each other, God. Let us grow together. Let us hold each other accountable. Let us be a community within Cornerstone that goes back out into Weaver and everywhere that we live, where we can be that shining light for you, God, where we can be that representative that steps up to the plate and does everything possible to love people and to be that example that you have called us to be, Father. So we ask that you be with the worship team, be with Matt, be with everything we got going on today, be with those getting baptized tonight. Such an exciting time of that next step of faith, Father. So be with everyone. Let's have a great service this morning. We love you and praise you. And everybody said? Amen.
Thank you. Would you like me to present? this morning, so you got a lot of moving quick. You got to talk to everybody in the house. Go.
Hey, everybody, how y'all doing this morning? Good to see y'all. I get shirt. I see it's on the back room. Kids, how you doing? Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Jamie Walker. Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. How you doing? How you doing? High five.
You got that motorcycle ready yet?
No.
I can't be here today. I can't.
We're leaving next Sunday. Even if you can't go, on the start, you have to come down and hot dogs to the party.
Hey, that video's next. I'm gonna say something about it for you. Hey, that Idleman video is next.
They're done.
No, right now. I'm just gonna talk to him and pull everybody around.
How you doing, man? Good to see you. Good morning.
What's up, Jamie?
All right, good morning. Let's gather back around this morning. Let's gather back around. All right. You can be seated. You can be seated where you're at this morning. I tell you, I love it when school is back in session. It's a good crowd this morning. I'm glad you're here. Hey, I want to share a video with you real quick this morning. And then tell you what we're fixing to start on Wednesday night. So if you would, pay attention to the screens this morning for this video, and then I'll make an announcement about Wednesday nights.
A fan is simply defined as an enthusiastic admirer. I would have to say that for most of my Christian life, I haven't been much more than a fan of Jesus. I was born into a Christian home. I went to a Christian school. You know, my dad was a preacher. And from the beginning, I was expected to love Jesus. I was expected to believe in Jesus. And that meant by the time I was 13, I was expected to have the Baptist blow-dry haircut. The peer pressure that I experienced as a kid was to wear the Christian t-shirt. So I had God's Gym, wore that one. This Blood's for You, and I had that one too. And from the beginning, I was a fan. I was a fan of Jesus. In fact, in my room, this is true, in my room, next to a poster of Michael Jordan, I had a picture of Jesus Christ. And that kind of captures it. I was a fan of Michael, and I was a fan of Jesus. I wanted to be like Jesus, but I wanted to be like Mike. And I thought that was enough. And what I've discovered over the years is that there are just a lot of Christians who are enthusiastic admirers of Jesus. They're fans. But then if you read through the Gospels, you discover that Jesus was never too interested in having fans. What he wanted was followers. He wasn't so concerned about the size of the crowd that was with him. He cared about the commitment of the people who were following him. There's a passage of Scripture that doesn't often get quoted, and it comes from Luke chapter 9, verse 23. It's Jesus. He says, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For a lot of people, that invitation to follow Jesus by denying yourself and taking up your cross, oftentimes that isn't included in the presentation of the gospel. And they got the John 3:16, but the Luke 9:23 somehow got left out. But here's what I've discovered, that for me and for others on this journey, that it's not enough just to be a fan. That until you completely surrender your life to Jesus Christ, and until you give him every part of you, you'll never experience the real life, the true life that he wants you to have. And so you're going to hear some different stories of people on this website who have gone from being a fan of Jesus, just an enthusiastic admirer, to being a follower of Jesus. And they have said, I'm ready to surrender, I'm ready to hold nothing back, and to give everything I have to Jesus Christ. I don't know if you're a fan. Maybe you're someone, though, like me, who wanted to be close enough to Jesus to get all the benefits, but not so close that it required sacrifice. You wanted to follow Jesus into heaven, but you didn't necessarily want to take a cross with you. But the only invitation that Jesus offered was an invitation to die to yourself and to find life in him. When we move from being a fan, just an enthusiastic admirer, to being a follower of Jesus Christ, that's when we truly find the life that he wants us to have. My name is Kyle Eidelman, and I am not a fan.
All right, so you've seen the video now. For the next 6 weeks on Wednesday night, we'll be doing this program called Not a Fan. You know, many of us, we believe that we're just, you say, oh, you're a follower of Jesus, and we're like, yes, praise the Lord, amen. But the reality is that in order to be a follower of Jesus, it has to cost you something. And when we're honest with ourselves, we've been fans for Jesus for a long time, because when we're real honest, we really go, you know, following Jesus has never really cost me anything. Everybody that you follow in the Bible that is a true follower of Christ paid some price to be there. And yes, Jesus paid the price for our sin, but it costs a lot of people a lot of things to follow. And so we're going to take the next 6 weeks and we're going to walk through this program, and it's going to be kind of a journey for us on Wednesday nights. And I encourage you to bring a notebook, because we're going to journal some things over this next 6 weeks. And it's going to be something that's going to be a really neat process for us to go through. And so I want to invite you to come out to that. Also, there's a book called Not a Fan. I started reading it, and this lesson is off of Kyle Eidelman's book, Not a Fan. And it is really good. It's going to go right along with what we're going to be teaching. So if you pick that up, it's at Lifeway. You can pick up a copy of that, pick that up this week. And I'm in chapter 2 on that. But it's going to be a great journey for us if you're looking to go deeper in Christ and you say, hey, I want to take my relationship to the next level. And I want to learn what it means to take up my cross and follow after him. So keep that in mind. That'll be Wednesday nights at 6:30. So if you can be here for that, it's going to be a great time for us. All right, if my ushers will come up this morning, I want to thank everyone that's been giving. We've been able to do so much through the church because of your generosity. And what did we say we wanted to be? We said we wanted to be a super generous church that gives and doesn't worry about it. And we've been able to do that because you're giving and not worrying about it. And I believe God is pleased in what we're doing. We do have an option. Chris is going to throw that out there. If you want to give, if you're a visitor of ours, we don't expect you to give. But if you call this church home, you believe in what this church is doing, or God just simply lays it on your heart, you can give to the church. You can also do that through text to give. Really simple process. We try to make it as easy as possible. So let's bow our heads this morning. Wes, will you pray for our offering this morning?
Father, we thank you for this day, dear Lord. Time to gather in your house, dear Lord. Worship you through praise and song, dear Lord. The messages come out all day, dear Lord. All these things, we just lift them up to you, the worship team. The message today is delivered, dear Lord. I just pray that you would just bless it. Father, we thank you for this time of offering, time to give back to you, dear Lord. Dear Lord, I just pray that you would give the tithes and offerings for the upbuilding of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, kids, it's your time. Who's got the kids this morning? Oh, it's the 3 wise guys. Let's all stand. From beginning to the end, all my life is in your hands. This whole world may hold me down, but it can never drown you out. I'm not really flesh and bone. I was made for something more. You are God, you're the great I am. Breath of life, I breathe you in. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. You are strong in my brokenness, sovereign over every step. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. Through the dark, I hear your voice. Rising up, I will rejoice. I was lost, but now I'm found. 'Cause even death can't hold you down. You are God, you're the great I am. Breath of life, I breathe you in. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. You are strong in my brokenness, sovereign over every step. Even in the fire, I'm alive in It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. Christ who lives within me. From beginning to the end, you deserve the glory. You deserve the glory. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. Christ who lives within me. sorrow and dead in my sin. Lost without hope with no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested, my life began. Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days I will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Let throne this morning, honored and for that privilege that we have that so many in the past and our ancestors didn't even have the opportunity to appear before you in the throne of grace. We bless you this day. Pray that our music and our words, that we will continually lift up praise. In the midst of any situations that are in our life, Father, remind us, oh God, of the things you've done and the things you've brought us through. Bless you this day. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Would you give the Lord a hand this morning? You know, we need to worship like we really believe what we're saying, because the world is looking on, wondering if we really believe what we're saying. They really are. They want to see somebody who looks like they really believe what they're saying. And what it is when we say that we are something, our values have to match what we say. So if I say, I'm a sold-out believer for Jesus, then my actions ought to look like a sold-out believer for Jesus. And we stake the claim that we're ready to lay our life down for Jesus, but many of us aren't even ready to lift up our voice to Jesus. And so we got to worship like we really believe what we're saying. This morning, what we're talking about is being positioned for purpose. Positioned for purpose implies that there's an intent to where you're at in your life right now. If you're positioned with a purpose, then there's an intent to where you're at in your life right now. I want you this morning to think of a game of chess. Okay. Who in here has played chess before? Who in here doesn't understand chess at all? I'm kind of somewhere in between. I know how to move them, but I'm not going to beat you in 3 moves and hit the little buzzer. That's not going to happen. But the game of chess, we strategically place the players in certain spaces, in order to obtain victory. Talking about positions of purpose. We move the pieces in order to obtain victory. And usually it doesn't happen in one move. In chess, the game is played thinking multiple moves ahead. But what's interesting is we're thinking multiple moves ahead, but to the bystander, all they can see is the current position of the pieces. Are you following me this morning? Position for purpose. And what I realized right quick is that there are times when a well-placed pawn is more powerful than a king. Okay, and what do I mean this morning? It means that just maybe the places that you are in your life right now are not inconveniences. They're not pain, but they're a strategic position that God has placed you in order that you might obtain victory. Come on, man. Maybe, just maybe, the things that you're complaining about right now is a strategic move that you can't see the next 5 moves that God is going to do. Just maybe that job that you hate, maybe this position in life that you're in right now, maybe your financial state, maybe all of these things, maybe they're working together for the glory of God so that He might see victory take place. And I see a lot of people fanning, Kevin, so if we can bring that air down into that, I think it would benefit them, since I'm not preaching on hell this morning. We'll use those tactics when we preach on that, but not today. See, there are times when a well-placed pawn is more powerful than a king. And so that would mean that every position that I'm in life could be a position not only of purpose, but a position of power. Why is it when people testify about God bringing them through certain situations that the story often makes perfect sense looking back at all the details? Have you ever noticed that? When we look backwards, it makes sense. It's like, oh, I understand why I had to go through that. Oh, I understand why I had that job. Or I understand why I had to go through that season. But yet, when we're walking day to day, that day-to-day grind, it just feels like chaos. It just feels like chaos. But when we look back, it makes sense. Why? Because when we look back, we realize that God was writing our story. God was writing the story, so when we look back, it makes sense to us because we go, oh, here's the whole plot. But right now in our day-to-day life, we can't understand the plot of what we're going through because we can't see the purpose for it yet. But what we have to realize is that God's already placed you in a position of purpose. It's not a position of pain, but a position of purpose. And what seemed like chaos, or what even seems like chaos in your daily life right now, just maybe, it's the sovereignty of God. I'm going somewhere this morning. If you'll follow along, you'll get there too, I promise. You know, what if that's the reason that you are at your current job? What if that's the reason for your trial? It's not that God doesn't care about you, but that He's placed you in a position of purpose. I believe you're not there by happenstance, but that your job or current position, and listen to this, your job or current position is a strategic movement from God Almighty to bring about His glory. That alone ought to make you feel better about wherever you're at in life. That alone, that God has strategically placed you. When is the last time that God ever did something by just happenstance, by half-hearted? When is the last time He ever did that? So where you're at right now can't be something that He just threw and left up for chance, but it's something that He's allowed to happen to accomplish a purpose that is bigger than you are. And so when you're going through it, you ought to be able to rise up and say, you know what, I'm going to my job today, and you know what, God's going to do something through my position that I'm in. We think of jobs like this. We have Christian positions and we have secular positions. But what if none of that's the case, but that every job for the Christian is a Christian position is just as powerful as being the pastor of a megachurch? Because think, most of you, when I go to work, I work with about 150 people. There's not 150 people here this morning, so where do I have my influence? It's all in how I do. It's all in how I move. And it's all in how I view myself and the purpose that God has for me. See, I believe there's no happenstance. There's no circumstance. You know, it's just not mere circumstances, but that God is strategically aligning things. See, when we understand that our position has a purpose, it makes going to work easier. And dealing with difficulty doesn't seem as hard. Isn't that true? When you're doing something for your children, and they've got a ball game in the blazing hot Saturday morning sun, and you're sitting out there, you're not just sitting out there to enjoy the game. You're doing it because you love your kid. You're doing it because you want to see them succeed. So it has a purpose, so you don't mind standing out there and getting fried and going home looking like a lobster. But you wouldn't do that for your neighbor's kid. See, we got to understand that there's a purpose. Kelly, you guys in those ball games, when y'all sit in those baseball games and just burning hot and going, thank the Lord that life doesn't like baseball. Because you travel to all these places, you go to the ends of the earth, and Wes, even in his coaching and all that he does, it's like, man, it is really hot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know that I want to be out there. But when he knows his purpose is driven by the very heart of God, it's easy for us to go and say, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. Imagine this. Imagine that we've planned an attack on our enemies. We've planned an attack on our enemies. And so we place spies living normally among the people to obtain information and attack the enemy from the inside. Wouldn't that be a great strategic plan? We've seen that played out even in terrorism now, is that people just come over and they live normally amongst us until the day they don't. And then all of a sudden they attack, and we didn't see it coming. Why? Because they were living in our midst. But what if every day that you go to your job, the job that you have, is not because that God has forgotten you, but because God has placed you there, not simply to work, but to be a missionary? Because, when are you most tried? When are you most frustrated? Winter times, where do you spend the majority of your time? At your job. So do you think that God's just let that be just a circumstance? What if really all of it's part of an elaborate plan? And he says, how can I influence people for me? Well, I can do it by placing this guy working at the Chevron. And this person over here, they're a school teacher. And this person over here works at Walmart, they're the door greeter. And God's like, I'm just placing my people in position for my purpose. And we downplay it. We say, I just make minimum wage. I'm not important. And the whole time God's going, yeah, but your amount to be is maximum wage. Because you're valuable to the purpose that I have. See, we want to look at secular things in man's eyes, but I'm telling you to look at secular things through God's eyes. Maybe it's not so secular. And if that's the truth, then doesn't that change the whole purpose of why you're there? Now, if that changes the whole purpose of why we're there, then think about this. What about those times where you volunteer to do something at church, and you go out like we did maybe last Saturday, and you bake in the sun all day, and you get fried, and you come in here really, a lot of us doing looking looking like a lobster this last Sunday, and you're fried and you get in the shower and you're like, I even burned my feet. How did I do that? But you'll give tirelessly to that effort. Because why? It has a purpose. You feel like it has a purpose for God's glory. But when you get up on Monday morning and you go to your job, you drive the whole way there complaining about the circumstance that you're in and the position that God's placed you in, when it has just as much importance as the job you did the day before. But what is the difference? The difference is where your mind is aligning your purpose. Follow me this morning. Follow me this morning. Why can't we look at our job the same way? Why can't we look at it the same way? I know I've talked to several of you, so man, I'm ready for another job. And I understand there's times to change. But what God wants to see how you're going to respond where you're at. And maybe He doesn't change your circumstance. See, because God uses His children, like we talked about last week, to bring life to dead places. He uses His children to bring light to dark places. And maybe you work in a place where the majority of people are not Christians. They're not friendly. They don't know about salvation. But what if they're just waiting to be asked? And maybe you're the person that's supposed to bring it to them. You know, maybe you're, in God's eyes, that special forces that goes in. But you've never looked at yourself that way. Because until you start looking at yourself the way that God looks at you, you're never going to know your purpose. You're never going to understand why God is doing the things He's doing. And when you go to work, you got to carry Him with you. See, so now it's beginning to make sense that maybe I'm positioned for the purpose. I want to walk you through a story this morning. Joseph. The story of Joseph. He was positioned for purpose. Now, this is not Joseph, Jesus' earthly father. I want you to understand. We got to get. This is Joseph and the multi-techno-color dream coat guy. This is the one that we're talking about. All right, this is Joseph, the great-grandson of Abraham. And you're going in mind, you're walking down that lineage right. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Okay, yeah, you're right. That is the right one. So this is Joseph, the great-grandson of Abraham. And so I want to show you the scripture here. Let's walk here. Genesis chapter 37, verse 3. And if you want to go to Genesis, we're going to be 37 to 41 for a little while. So you can go there and you can kind of follow along. Genesis 37, starting with verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. Israel being Jacob, or Israel, he had two names, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So Joseph, even in the beginning, is kind of in a troubled position. He's kind of got this thing where his father favors him because he was old when he had him. So he's kind of like the baby of the family, in a way. And so here he is, and his father favors him. So his father makes this coat for him. So it's almost like his father drew a bullseye on him. Because now he's got this great, beautiful coat that his father made for him and has forgotten the other, 11 brothers that he has. And so now it's kind of like, oh, he's dad's favorite. So Joseph was highly favored by his father Jacob. And this was to his own demise as Joseph dreamed these wild dreams interpreted to mean his brothers bowing down to him. And they were jealous of him and plotted to kill him. However, one of the brothers convinced them to sell him into slavery instead. So Joseph, what happens to him is he starts having these dreams. And in these dreams, it's like one of them, there's these bales of hay, and they all fall down to him, who's another bale of hay. And it's like, and he tells his brothers about it, which is probably the worst idea he could have had. He's like, hey, one of these days I had this dream, and you guys were bowing down to me. And then there was this other time that I had this dream, and it looked like you guys were bowing down to me. And his brothers were like, you know what, we're not really down with that thing. I mean, you can imagine, those of you who have little brothers, hey, you're going to bow down to me one day. Can you imagine? You're like, I mean, that's just kind of the brother relationship. But this bothered them even deeper than that, because they said, you know what, we're going to kill him because of this, because we don't like him. He thinks he's greater than we are. Who is he? So let's kill him. And then as he's coming out, they plan to kill him, but one of their brothers says, no, let's don't kill him. Let's merely throw him in this pit and let's take his clothes and demise. Now, if you're looking at this story, you're going, man, this is not a very good position for Joseph. How can God be in this? Because see, his situation it sounds a lot worse than most of your situations do. I mean, his situation's kind of bad. Your own brothers, they're going to kill you, but then they don't kill you. They just sell you off into slavery, which isn't good either. And because really what they're saying is, we're going to send you on down the road, and we don't have any idea what's going to happen. And so, what happens is they send him on down the road. And I promise you, when we wrap this up, you're going to go, okay, all right. So it says, in Egypt, the marketplace of affairs, Joseph is sold to a slave. He's sold as a slave to Potiphar, the Pharaoh's chief steward. And let me tell you another thing that I heard this week. Chief steward could also have been interpreted as chief executioner. Okay? Potiphar if he wanted you dead, he could have you dead. And he kind of fulfilled that responsibility in the kingdom there. And so Joseph gets sold now. He's been traded from his brothers, and now he's sold to Potiphar. In Potiphar's house, he's there, and Potiphar is the chief executioner. So now it's not like his journey's really improved that much. And we go, God, are you there? Why? How could this happen? And Joseph, he decides at this point to take a position of honor. You know, there's never a circumstance in Joseph's life, as it's told out through the Bible, where it says that he did a negative thing against God. I haven't found one instance in the Bible where it says that Joseph ever dishonored God or was disobedient. And so what does he do? He's in Potiphar's house, and he works hard. What's he do? He honors the position that he's in. Let me show you what I got. Genesis 39, verse 2. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master, that's Potiphar. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. And Potiphar put him in charge of his household and entrusted to his care everything that he owned. Everything that he owned. You have to see that when we're obedient in our position, that God will bring us to the place that we need to be. When we're obedient in our position, God will take us to the next level. Joseph is here. He was favored by his father. His father does all these things for him. But then his position changes, and now he's a slave. But what does he do then? He doesn't complain. He doesn't get upset. He doesn't gripe and say, God, why me? Why do I have to go through this? God, why am I having to work this job? No, what he says is, I'm just going to work hard wherever I'm at and believe God for the rest. Wouldn't you like to be the boss of a company where everybody worked like that? You could probably get something done. And so he says, okay, I'm just going to work. And when he does, what happens again? God shows him favor. And next thing you know, he is running his master's house. And he's got to be thinking, you know, for a slave, this ain't too bad. Because I'm eating good, I'm clothed good, and it's all working out for him. And Joseph could have laid around and felt sorry for himself, but he didn't. He could have tried to escape, but he didn't. He honored his position, and he waited on the Lord. He honored his position, and he waited on the Lord. Now, when you're Joseph, and you've been baked by the Egyptian sun, you will get quite the tan. Joseph had quite the tan. And also, when you work real hard like a slave, another thing that you'll get is you'll get muscles. And another thing that you'll get, because you're not eating all the time, you'll get lean. So imagine that Joseph now kind of looks like the Rock. Joseph has got the six-pack abs. Joseph is working it his way. She had got this desire for him. This desire. Because see, Joseph kind of prospers in everything he does. So even in this situation, he's prospering. There's women who want him. You think, oh, that's not too bad of a position for Joseph to be in. Until it's your master, the chief executioner's wife. Chief executioner. Executioner being the key point. So he's in there and she's like, hey, you, why don't you come over here and go to bed with me? Sorry, that's what she said. Some versions a little worse than that. And she says, come on, you are a mighty fine looking man. And Joseph says, no, I'm not going to do it. I will not, number one, I will not dishonor my master's house, but more than that, I will not dishonor my God. Because see, Joseph's figured out that his position, wherever he is to honor the Lord in that position. And so he says no, and she just keeps on and keeps on and keeps on and keeps on. Come, go with me. Get away. And then one day he's in there and he's working, and he's still working up some sweat. You know what I'm saying? You see the calendars? And you laugh. And he's he's got that New York firefighter look going. He's just rolling that broom. He's working it, which is also an attractive quality. A man who cleans. He's sweeping up. He's got it like he likes it. And she's just over there, and she is just dying for him. She has let herself go. All her guards are there. And she says, come. And she grabs him by his coat or his robe. She says, come, go with me. And what does he do? He listens to what God tells him. He flees temptation. He doesn't dabble in it. He flees it to the point where he leaves his clothing with her and takes off on the sprint. And it doesn't say where he went, but it had to be entertaining wherever he was going. The street. Out of there. It said no one was around. So that implies that no one would have known that this is what he was going to do. So he's gone. And she's holding his clothes. And she's embarrassed. Because what? She's been rejected. What woman wants to be rejected? Especially one that's in that amount of authority. And so he runs off. And she's holding his robe. She says, well, you know what? You burn me, I'll burn you. So when her husband gets home, she says, oh, look what your slave has done. See, now he's a slave. Look what your slave's done. He tried to force me into bed with him. But I screamed and he ran. Boy, you got to love a manipulative woman. Potiphar, he got him a good one. She's trying to sneak around on him. She's trying to do all these things. And then she's lying too. And so Joseph, he gets put in prison. Now let me show you this scripture. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison. It says that he burned with anger. You can imagine if your wife told you that, you'd probably be mad too. And it says the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, here we go again. The Lord was with him. And he showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. And the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that so interesting that God had favor on Joseph even in prison? See, just because your circumstance may change, when you're living for the Lord, God's still going to show you favor. And it may not be the position that you want to. It may not be the position of comfort. But it will be the position of purpose. And that's what Joseph was doing. And so he continues on. And he just serves and he serves and he serves. See, only a truly rich relationship with the Lord would say, you know what? Even if you put me in the sewer, God, I will serve you in such a way to honor you in the sewer. We can't even honor God when we're making $20 an hour and we don't like something that we're having to do. Joseph's in prison for something he didn't do at all. Yet he's honoring God in his circumstance. Why? Because number one, his heart belongs to God. And if your heart belongs to God, then you fully are obedient to what he calls you to do, no matter if you like it or you don't like it. I've worked in places I didn't like. But I tried to be thankful that God was still putting food on the table. Amen? See, Joseph honors his position even when it's unjust and even when it's uncomfortable. We don't like uncomfort. We don't like to be uncomfortable. And I'll be the biggest one to tell you, I don't like unjust ever. I'm like a justice guy. This is unjust. I'm ready to start a holy war. You know, I mean, literally every time April shake her head, she does. I don't like the smallest amount of injustice being done. I am ready to like go to war for anybody. Somebody comes to me and they're like, oh man, this person's doing this for me. I'm like, let's go get them. Grab the horses, grab the men, grab the chariots, let's go fight. And what if, but the thing is what if the very thing, right now that's in your life that you consider a setback in your life is really set up for God to do something wonderful? You say, oh, this is a setback. I didn't plan on this, God. But do you think that God is surprised? Your setback is really a setup for God to do something amazing. What if He's getting ready to blow down the doors of your life and bring heaven to earth and you don't know it because you're so caught up in how you feel that you can't understand that God's working above your feelings? Your setback is really your setup. See, so many people are begging God to make Himself known in their life, and then when He uses hardship to do it, they're angry with Him. But your setback is your setup. We're like, God, you can only show me your will for my life if it's comfortable, pleasing, and easy to do. And we laugh and we grin because we really know that's the truth. Joseph had worked in Potiphar's house for 5 years. He spent at least 2 years in prison, at least 2 years. It was really probably a little more than that. On totally made-up charges. So what do we have to complain about? Wouldn't you hate to serve in prison for 2 years? Man, it'd be terrible. But yet, on totally made-up charges. It says, for Joseph, many of the events in his life were like a setback, but they were a setup. Not just to bring about Joseph's salvation, but to bring about the salvation of Israel. See, that's the purpose that I'm talking about. That's bigger than you are, that's happening in your life right now, that you can't see, but God's bringing about the fulfillment of it. You can't see it right now. But see, Joseph wasn't sold into slavery for Joseph's well-being. Joseph wasn't put in Potiphar's house for Joseph's well-being. Joseph was put in the Egyptian palace as a spy for God to bring about the salvation of Israel. It was bigger than Joseph. See, what if your position is not even about you? What if your position is about someone else? And God knows that they're only going to be saved because He strategically placed you with your gifts and your talents to reach them. What if the job that you hate, the job that you complain about, the job that you go to every day and you're like, God, why do I have to do this job? They don't pay enough, they're mean to me. What if it's not even about you, but there's somebody there that's only going to know Him through you? And if you can ever get that in your mind, then I'm telling you, getting up on Monday morning becomes so much easier. Because see, when you understand that you have purpose, it will drive you to places you didn't think you could go, to do things you didn't think you could do. And Joseph is forgotten about, even by the ones that he helped in prison. While he's in prison, there's 2 people there, and they come to him, they have these dreams, and Joseph tells them what they mean, and one of them is good, and one of them is not so good. And both dreams come to pass, and he says, hey, when you get out of here, remember me. Remember Joseph down here, because everybody has forgotten about me. And remember me, tell them that I was here, and speak highly of me, and bring me out of this prison, and they don't do it. And Joseph continues to serve, boom, 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 in prison. And he's like, man, God has forgotten me. You ever been in that position where you're praying, and you're like, man, God has forgotten me. You don't even hear my prayer anymore. And you're alone in that prison, but the same thing is that when you choose to honor, it puts you in supernatural places. And so what does he do? He goes and he says, okay, well, one day they have a problem, and Pharaoh has this dream, and nobody can interpret it. Nobody can interpret the dream. And then somebody remembers, oh, there's this guy Joseph, he's in prison. I had a dream one time, and he interpreted it. And he says, well, go get him. So go get him. And Joseph does what? He goes to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh tells him his dream. And Joseph tells him this. He says, listen, he says, what this dream means is that for the next 7 years, we're going to be prosperous like we've never been before. We're going to be so prosperous, we're going to have an abundance. We're going to have more than we need. Well, what's going to happen after 7 years of abundance? We're going to have 7 years of eating the dust off the ground famine. We're not going to have anything. You're not going to be able to drive to somewhere that you can find anything. You're not going to be able to make a journey. See, everybody everywhere is going to have nothing. So for the next 7 years, what we've got to do is we've got to put back. We've got to put back the extra so that when we go through 7 years of famine, then we have something to survive. See, God's going to save Israel through Joseph. They're not going to have anything to eat. So where are they going to have to go? They're going to have to go to the largest kingdom in the world at that time. They're going to have to go to Egypt. They're going to have to go and they're going to have to ask for it. They're living in these outskirts here. But God's about to bring freedom. They're living in the outskirts of Egypt because, see, that's where they've been. And God's about to bring freedom to them. And so Pharaoh says, you know what? You know what? You're fixing to get a promotion, Joseph. Let me show you what I'm talking about. 41. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. And he dressed him in robes of fine linen. And he put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in his chariot as his second in command. And people shouted before him, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt. In other words, the only way that I am higher than you is in position, because everything that happens is going to happen through you. Joseph saves all his people by being placed in charge in a foreign kingdom. But first, he had to be a slave, and then he had to be a prisoner. Can you imagine? When God is ready to change your position, it can happen in an instant. Some of you say, well, I've been waiting a while. Well, have you been waiting 2 years in prison? Some of you say, well, I've been waiting a while. Well, did your brother sell you to slavery and wish you were dead? Because, see, when God's ready to change your position, he can do it. I'm talking about from prison to second highest commander in the world. There was no higher kingdom at the time than what was going on in Egypt under Pharaoh. And he is only under Pharaoh by title. He is actually calling all the shots in the entire world. From prison to palace. And it can take any time. God did it immediately. Isn't it amazing that when God's ready to do it, all of a sudden he speaks it and you're it? I was on vacation one time and I got a call about a job. I went literally, I had no idea. I was in one place and then I was at another. And each time it was like boom, boom, boom. And I didn't see it coming. See, you have no idea what your current position is. You have no idea what your current position is actually positioning you for. You better honor God where you are, bloom where you're planted, work hard, and be thankful, because you don't know what your current position is positioning you for. See, it's just like those chess pieces. Victory comes multiple steps ahead, but all we can see is where they stand on the board. Right now, all you can see in your life is where you stand on the board, but God has strategically placed you for victory. See, God places you for purpose. And just like special forces in the military, we may not always know where we're going until we get there. And when I look at Joseph, and I look at the story, I realize that we're being strategically placed, not only for our salvation, but for the salvation of others. So that means that I'm pretty important in my day-to-day life. I've got one more thing to go here, guys. I promise. You need to learn to honor your position even when it's lowly. Honor your position even when it's lowly. Even when you're not supervisor. Even when you're not manager. Even when you're not even leader. You can honor your position where you're at. I looked at the story of David, and in the book of Samuel, Israel decided they wanted an earthly king. And up to this point, it had just been God himself leading Israel in that way. But God gave them what he wanted, and he gave them Saul. And it says Saul was taller than everyone else, and he was handsome. But soon the power got to his head, and eventually God pulls the kingdom away from Saul for his disobedience. Now follow along. Samuel, the priest, has to anoint a new king over Israel. So God leads him to an unlikely shepherd boy named David. But Saul wasn't going to turn over his kingdom in one day. So David was positioned under Saul for a period of time. And during the time, even though David knew he would become king, he still chose to honor Saul. And David even struck down someone who helped kill Saul. And David said these words. He said he killed him because he raised his hand against God's anointing. David knew from the moment that Samuel anointed him, he would be
before you receive the position that God's promised you. And you say, I've been feeling like a long time God's promised me this. Well, keep believing. Let me share the scripture with you. David, he honors his position. After the death of Saul, David returned from striking down the Amalekites and stayed in Ziklag 2 days. On the third day, a man arrived from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust on his head. And when he came to David, he fell on the ground to pay him honor. And where have you come from? David asked him. And he answered, I've escaped from the Israelite camp. And what happened? David asked. Tell me. The man fled from battle. He said, the men fled from the battle, he replied, and many of them fell and died. And Saul and his son Jonathan are dead. Then David said to the young man who brought him the report, how do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead? If I could tell that guy anything, I'd be like, don't answer this question. He said, I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, the young man said, and there was Saul leaning on his spear. When he says leaning, he doesn't mean propped up. He means, hey, it's on me, I fell on him to die. And he says, there was Saul leaning on his spear with the chariots and their drivers in hot pursuit. And when he turned around and saw me, he called out to me, and I said, what can I do? And he asked me, who are you? And Amalekite, I answered. Then he said to me, stand here by me and kill me. I'm in the throes of death, but I'm still alive. So I stood beside him, and I killed him, because I knew that after he had fallen, he could not survive. And I took the crown that was on his head and the band on his arm, and it brought them here to my Lord. Then David and all his men with him took hold of their clothes and tore them. They mourned and wept and fasted till evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, for the army of the Lord and the nation of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. And David said to the young man who brought him the report, where are you from? And he said, I'm the son of a foreigner, an Amalekite. And David asked him, why weren't you afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? Another question I don't think I should answer. And then David called one of his men and said, go strike him down. So he struck him down and he died. For David had said to him, your blood be on your own head. Your own mouth testified against you when you said, I killed the Lord's anointed. David honored the position he was in up to the point that the promise was fulfilled. He honored it. See, you would think that David would have celebrated the fact that Saul was dead, but he didn't. You would think the man who helped kill Saul would have been justified, but he wasn't. Why? Because, see, Saul had been positioned by God, and it wasn't David or any other man's job to remove him from that position. It was God's job. See, you may not understand your position, but it's not yours. It's not yours to disrespect who put you there. You may not understand your position, but it's not in your power to disrespect the one who put you there, because God is not surprised by the job that you're working in. He's not surprised by the position you're in. And let me just tell you that God places different people over us for different seasons in our life. And sometimes those people can make our life difficult, and it can be heaven on earth, and sometimes it can be hell on earth. But our job is to honor our boss. You honor the leader. The truth is, if God wanted you in that position, you would already be there. If God wanted you in that position, you would already be there. He promoted Joseph to second most powerful in the world in one moment. Do you think that God can't take you from fry cook to manager? If you can go from prison to second highest leader in command, do you not think that God can take you from fry cook to the manager? He can do it. And who knows that in time the position may already even be promised to you. But just like David, it's yours to honor for a season that which is above you. And let me tell you, backbiting is not honoring. Disobedience and rebelling is not honoring. And let me show you this. Disappointment does not justify disobedience. Disappointment doesn't justify disobedience. What am I saying? Let me give you an example of what I mean. There was a lady who was upset with her husband. She was tired of him leaving the mess around the house. She was tired of him watching football all the time. She was tired of him never spending time with her. And this is what she said. She said, when I married him, it was ideal, but then it became an ordeal. And honestly, now I want a new deal. But let me tell you, disappointment does not justify disobedience. You know, people, they say, oh, my wife, she was just mean to me, so I went and I found me another one. Oh, my wife was just unfaithful. You know, she was unfaithful, so I was unfaithful. No, disappointment does not justify disobedience. And you're not going to get a pass from God time. It doesn't say that he may lift you up right now. It says in due time. What am I to do till then? I'm to humble myself under God's mighty hand. What does it mean to humble yourself? It means to lower oneself in dignity and importance. Man, we could all learn a little bit about lowering ourselves in dignity and importance. Thinking ourselves as lower than others has benefited us more than thinking of ourselves higher than others. In other words, instead of elevating myself above someone else, I choose to lower my position I've been given, and I honor God in my current state, and in time, He will do the promoting. Who knows, but in the position that I'm in, that it's to test me to see if I'm ready for the next level. What if God is testing me? Let me tell you what I mean. David was a shepherd boy guarding his father's sheep. And then he slayed a giant and he led an army. Then he was the greatest king that Israel ever known. He was a shepherd boy. Nobody knew who he was. Then he slayed a giant and everybody knew who he was. Then he was the greatest king Israel ever was and left a legacy. Look at this here. The position you are in today may not even be the position you're remembered for. The position that you are in today, don't get discouraged. Don't get down. Don't get disheartened by it. Don't be beaten down. Don't think this is all that God has for you, because the position you're in today may not even be the position that you're remembered for. And then I saw this here, this quote from John Hampton, who is the pastor of Journey Christian Church. He says, sometimes the place of your greatest fear, sometimes the place of your greatest hurt, sometimes the place of your greatest pain becomes the place of greatest presence. I'm destroyed. My heart is downcast. I feel like I've never felt it before. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes our greatest fear, our greatest hurt, our greatest pain opens up the door for God to show His greatest presence. Listen to me on this. God may not move you to a new place, but He may put a new you in your old place. God may not move you to a new place, but He may put a new you in your old place. And you know what? Then your old place will feel like a new you. What do I mean by that? It's like this. Imagine that I take Randy, and me and him, we go off into this room, and we walk up in there, and the lights are out. And I mean, it's one of those rooms that don't have one of this. You couldn't pump daylight in it. It's so dark that you can do this, and you have no idea that anything is moving in front of you. You have no idea how big the room is. You have no idea what's in the room. And all you have to do is really just stand still, because you're afraid if you walk, you'll trip over something. I've been in places that were that dark, where you walk in and you can't see anything. And then all of a sudden, someone flips the light on. And then all of a sudden, everything is clear in the room. It isn't that your position changed. It's that your perspective did. What if that's what God's going to do in your life right now? What if He's just wanting to turn the light on so that you can see, hey, I'm not in the dark room alone anymore, but I'm in a great palace that's been waiting for me the entire time. And now the light has been turned on. Sure, you're in the same place you were months ago, but now maybe your outlook's changed. And so, as Randy comes this morning, to lead us in a song, I want you to think about this. You may be in the same place that you were moments ago. You may be in the same place that you were months ago. You may be in the same place that you were years ago. And you may think it's a dead end, but maybe God just needs to change your outlook this morning. Maybe He needs to change why you're there. And our prayer needs to be this. It needs to be, Lord, if you want to change my position, then if you won't change my position, then change me. If you won't change my position, God, then change me. Change me to love and serve where you've placed me. Teach me to honor where I am and bring the light of Jesus to dark places. Because you may think you were positioned in a place of pain, but God has positioned you in a place of purpose this morning. And I praise the Lord for that, because I'm glad that He hasn't always granted me everything that I asked for. Because I wouldn't have what I have. And God, a long time ago, decided that He would strategically place me in a place so that I would find victory and I would find success. And if I look back on it, I realize that He was writing the story the entire time. And it was just my job to honor the position that I'm in. I would love one day to be the full-time pastor of this church. It would thrill me nothing more. But every morning that I go into my job at Aerospace, I'm grateful. And I say, you know what, God, you've positioned me here for purpose. For however long you want that to be. And if tonight so that when I walk out of these doors, I know that I accomplished what God had for me here, that He didn't have to send somebody else to do cleanup behind me. Let's stand together this morning. How are you looking at your position this morning? I know for a fact, I've talked with several of you, you struggle with the job that God's placed you in. You struggle with the life that you're living right now. You struggle with the season that you're going through. But what if, just what if we could change our perspective this morning and say, God, I realize I'm birthed with purpose, and I was placed here with a strategic plan, and I'm ready to fulfill that plan which you have me. And it may not be accomplished in a day. It may take years, God, and I'm willing to do that. If that's you this morning, would you come to the altar? Would you surrender it to God and you say, God, I am here for whatever you want me to do. Show me tomorrow as I go into my job what I was to do that day, and then the next day show me that, the next day show me that. And you may be this way this morning. You say, man, I don't even know the Lord. Well, how about today we change that? And what the great thing is, if you find Him this morning, we'll baptize you tonight. It's going to be a great day. Be obedient this morning as Randy and them sing.
There in the newborn cry, it's there in the light of every sunrise, there in the shadows of this life, your great grace is there on the mountain top. There in the everyday and the Monday, there in the sorrow and the dancing, your great grace, oh such grace. From the creation to the cross, there from the cross into eternity, your grace finds me. Your grace finds me. It's there on a wedding day, there in the weeping by the graveside, there in the very breath we breathe, your great grace. Same for the rich and poor, the same for the saint and for the sinner. Enough for the whole wide world, your great grace. To the cross, there from the cross into eternity, your grace finds me. Yes, your grace finds me. In the darkest night of the soul, songs of victory, your grace finds me. Yes, your grace finds me.
I just need God to work in my situation. If that's you this morning, would you raise your hand? I'll just pray for you when I'm closing. Yeah. So. Maybe you say, Pastor, I know that I need to make a change in my life, and I'm not living for the Lord the way I should. And I want to change. If that's you this morning, would you raise your hand and pray for you this morning? We can do better. We can do better. Let's pray. God, there's a purpose for our pain. There's a purpose for our position, God. But it starts, God, by honoring where we're at. Lord, we need to honor you in every season of our life, God. And honor what you've done for us, God. And follow Joseph's example, God, and watch our life change. And when we honor you on Monday morning with thankful hearts, God, with grateful hearts, when we honor you in the things that we say and the life that we live, Lord, that you'll bring about the